Back in 2017, a lot of files from the development of Episode 1 and Episode 2 leaked. These leaks include stuff like the leaked Alex death scene, for example. The person responsible for the leak changed all the last edited dates to 2017, which simply led everyone to believe that all of these maps are just stuff from Episode 1 and Episode 2 testing. However, there's another way of checking last edited dates, by checking this line inside the VMF editor build. VMF files are the files that are used in the level editor for anyone that doesn't know. It turns out that this line is used to determine at what date a VMF file was last edited. It does this by counting up the days starting from October 24th, 1996, about the time development of Half-Life 1 started. With this information we can determine at what time a map was last edited with very high accuracy, with only deviations being towards the future. Most of these maps were last edited in between 2004 and 2007, a very much expected time for Episode 1 and Episode 2 maps. However, the maps placed inside the instances and experiments folders were actually last edited in between 2012 and 2014, which means that these maps include testing and development of Half-Life 3. A lot of these maps were broken or unplayable in many ways. Thanks to the work of clever Softworks, which include Tyler McVicker, Jacathan, Piston Miner, Max, Magic Nipples and Dank Parrot, we get to play most of these maps, all bundled together in a mod called Half-Life 2 Aftermath. Get ready for custom weapons, custom enemies and entirely new concepts, all leaked directly from the development of Half-Life 3. The first couple of maps include cleaned up versions of existing Episode 2 maps. These are mostly the same except for a few slight edits and the removal of NPCs and scripted events. These were presumably cleaned up for later use in testing, as we will see two of these three maps reused later in other test maps. The next map is Outland 10 Remix Dark. This one is a randomized map where you fight against Combine. It features the already known Outland 10 map, although heavily modified and set at night. The end goal is to get to this tower, disable the shield, then get in the car, after which the map ends. While this map was presumably only made as a random enemy test, it actually makes for a really fun standalone arena shooter. Some other maps include two zombie arenas in which zombies randomly spawn, one of these areas actually being taken from Episode 1, the original map being Ep 1 C1700A. The Outland 10 remix map and the zombie testing arenas really make it seem like Half-Life 3 was planning on adding randomized enemies, or even a complete open world, supporting evidence of which I'll get to later in the other maps. There are three different types of Outland houses, which randomly spawn enemies as well. There's something interesting about these Outland houses, which is that they're actually instances. Instances allow you to create a prefab of something, in this case a building, and then place it in other VMFs. If you are to ever edit the original instance afterwards, it will be edited across all VMFs you use it in. The reason that this is so interesting is that instances were first introduced in Left 4 Dead 2 in 2009, which is further evidence that these maps are not from the development of Episode 2. Before we get to the main stuff, I'll quickly gloss over four smaller but still interesting maps. These four maps weren't actually included in the leak. They were created by clever Softworks to show off enemies, scenes and weapons, which were also leaked but didn't have their own map. Magnuson scene shows off leaked Magnuson scenes that were leaked in Portal 2 in 2011, which are most likely from Episode 3. These include Magnus Idle and Magnus Wave. Magnus Idle being a really long scene which I won't show in its entirety. It's just him standing around basically. And Magnus Shakehead, Magnus No Point and Magnus Get Going. In Weapon Proto 1 demo, we get to see an interesting concept for a new weapon. You will be able to scan for enemies through walls and gain ammo by consuming props. At this point it still looks like the 357, which is very most likely a placeholder though. NPC weapon scanner demo shows off an unused enemy, presumably also for Episode 3. It looks like a city scanner, but it actually is equipped with a gun. There really isn't much else to it. And NPC Combine Armored demo, which feature a leaked Episode 3 Combine enemy, this one having more health and looking different. These armored Combine kinda look like an early version of the Charger Combine unit we eventually got in Half-Life Alyx. So perhaps during the development of Half-Life Alyx, Valve actually came back to this map for inspiration. We'll now get to what I believe to be the three most interesting maps of them. These maps are again directly leaked and not put together by clever Softworks. They do of course include some fixing by clever Softworks, but you know what I mean. The first one being Doggate's Hub map. You start off at the level in the mines of Episode 2 where you would usually defend against the Antlions, though heavily modified. You find Dog and Alex both trapped behind a combine and laser wall respectively. You start off with no weapons but can see a lot of wooden planks. You get your crowbar in an elevator which causes it to crash down, which is taken straight from the beginning of Episode 2. And I won't mention every single time this happens, but basically this entire map is just bits and pieces taken from already existing Episode 2 maps, just slightly edited, which actually fit quite well together mostly. This part here actually being the random zombie spawning test we saw earlier, just retextured. We arrive back at the hub, now equipped with a crowbar, which allows us to access the next part of the map, which is where we find the gravity gun. This allows us to free Dog. Dog wants to, but can't free Alex yet. He can however open one of these doors for us. This path takes us to what we know as the start of Freeman Pontifex, however slightly edited. For example, some buildings have been added here, which are actually the same instances we saw earlier, the one with randomly spawning enemies inside of them. This is also where Dog gets his first of many upgrades. He gets an actual working turret attached to him. After a quick fight with the Endline guard, Dog opens up the way to the elevator. This is where we find the second upgrade, a red roller mine which actually functions as a head for Dog, which he can use to open these types of laser doors. We return to the hub and free Alex, which is where the map ends. Upgrading Dog is the first interesting element we learn about in this leak. We will learn about the second element in this next map. And in the final map we will see the closest thing we have to Half-Life 3 yet. But we need to get get to the second map first. The second map is called Resource Gathering Testbed. You start off in this death-textured place with Dog. Next to you is what seems to be a gear, according to the counter in the top left. You also have 3 more counters for biological, mechanical and energy. There's a button behind you which says it requires some of these resources. You start off with no weapons in sight. You can however find the 3 resources. In this map you will find 2 platforms that you can step on to spawn enemies. You're able to pick up a SMG from the body of a combine if you get killed by another enemy. Or you can just cheat all weapons like any normal human. Doing this you can actually start collecting the resources you need for the dog. When you do get enough resources and open the door, you will find the dog upgrade station. Dog will stand here where you choose an upgrade and apply it. These upgrades are all differently priced and include Shield Wall Zapper. This allows Dog to destroy combine shield, which actually looks pretty cool. A mounted machine gun, which is pretty self-explanatory, and we also saw this in the other map. A resource magnet, which I would assume would do what the name says, but Dog is able to pick up resources with or without the upgrade. So I would assume this increases the radius, but it doesn't. So it seems to do nothing except add to Dog's looks. An upgrade called Gate Opener, which allows Dog to open gates. An upgrade called Energy Harvester, which causes these electrical thumpers to spew out extra energy collectibles. Rocket Launcher, which is self-explanatory. It is to note, however, that these rockets are actually head crabs, which is interesting to say the least. Throw Attack, which allows Dog to throw props around like he did that one time in Half-Life 2. This is however a little broken in this map. The next upgrade is called Biohealth Converter, which is unusable without commands. It would allow the player to pay 25 of the biological resource to gain a bit of health. The next upgrade is called Directed Movement and allows the player to send Dog somewhere and call him back, similar to the rebels you would have in your squad in Half-Life 2. The final upgrade is called Rotor Jump. This upgrade legitimately does nothing. It is supposed to have a rotor at the top of it, which is missing in this map and presumably would allow Dog to jump or climb, since this is the only animation included in this upgrade. This is what Dog would look like with every upgrade installed. There are also these resource converters, which convert one resource to another. 25 mechanical and biological for 25 energy, 10 energy and 25 biological for 25 mechanical, and the final option being 10 energy and 25 mechanical for 25 biological. This type of resource collecting and being able to choose upgrades is interestingly enough something we would later see in Half-Life Alyx. Of course, in Half-Life Alyx you only get one resource, resin, but being able to choose upgrades to your liking seems to have been taken from these testings. The final map we got is Resource Gathering Prototype. You start off in the mines again, the ones we saw at the beginning of episode 2, and you can actually destroy crates for resources as well here. These mines lead straight to an edited version of episode 2 Outline 12, the map that features the big Strata battle at the end of episode 2. You will find Dog and the upgrade station behind the laser ball, which can only be opened if you collect enough resources. You can collect these from a bunch of randomly spawning enemies scattered throughout the map. Okay, so I did some off-camera mining and got enough resources for all upgrades. In this map, the rotor jump one is actually not included, which probably means it got scrapped in between these 2 maps. The goal of this map is to collect 3 gears and get to the silo. Some of these you are only able to get after purchasing some of Dog's upgrades. The first one is right here, basically right next to the laser wall. The second one is in this mine type place next to the crane, which actually includes a fully black antlion that spawns fast headcrabs and resources when killed. This is actually not the only custom enemy type we get in this map. There is another antlion type which is half transparent and blue colored. It has a trail to it and drops lots of the energy resource when killed. And the last gear is at the sawmill. When you finally get to open the door, it leads to nowhere but an untextured version of the silo. While this map didn't lead to a whole much, it leads me to believe that Half-Life 3 would have featured a lot of open world type elements, or have Dog as a permanent companion throughout the game. Let me know what you think in the comments, subscribe for more, and otherwise, thank you for watching.